This is the movement. The movement.
Especially for Black and Spanish boys, that's about the time we lose them. Because, you know, they've already been labeled special ed, or they're scaring their teachers, or they're getting too big and we got to put them somewhere. That's really the time where we can mold them. And because they drop out of high school, they don't drop out of high school senior year. The statistics are that boys of color drop out by 10th grade. So we've already lost them by 9th grade. We have to be accountable for those statistics, because as educators, we are accountable for our children. And we look at all different kinds of things. One thing that I like to do is choose very specific books and stories that I do and that I, teach with my students, because it's very important for Black boys especially to see themselves in the narrative of education. Because if they don't, they're like, why the fuck am I here?
So let's say, how many kids do you have in your seminary
35.
class?
30 fucking 5 kids.
I wasn't expecting
on
that.
any given day, it looks like there's 100 of them. They just keep coming. Like I turn around, there's 4 more coming out my purse. I'm like, what the fuck? Like average? I mean, I'm a realist. I know there are some that I lose. It's incremental. It started out, the numbers were fucked up. As the years progress, and I think that we kind of hone our craft, and we see, as a community, as a learning community, because my principal, he's this Caribbean man, he's wonderful. He loves our children. And I don't mean he's politically loving our children when the cameras are on. I mean he loves these children like they are his own, which is why I love him. I think he's such a wonderful leader. We talk about what works, and we acknowledge, all right, this shit did not work. Let's not do this again. But the state says, no, it's a public school. And that's probably part of the thing that gives us pause and gives us problems, because like when the state mandates a curriculum and they say you have to do this, and we're like, this shit doesn't work. Demographics is extremely important. My school is flanked by a men's shelter, a methadone clinic, an abandoned building, and a park that is base to the 2 rival gangs that split my district. So, that's why I'm doing this. For every Junel Diaz, for every Anthony Muhammad, for every Barack Obama that I think I'm teaching, I got the dudders. You know what I'm saying? I do. I got a couple yummies in my class. I know I do. And now, I'm so good at it, and I'm so used to my demographic that, like, by October I could tell, like, yeah, you ain't gonna make it to 21.
How do you go home at night? What do you know now? One thing that you wish you knew at 20.
That God is love. I wish I had a stronger relationship with God at 20 that I do now. I wish that I acknowledged and understood his imprint on my life.
How can you take that lesson to your kids?
Well, I love on them. That's that's what I do. Like in the morning, when I do my gratitudes and my morning meditations, like God just guide me, like guide my hand, guide my heart, guide my, life and death is in the power of the tongue, 1 John, just guide what I say. Because how you speak to children becomes their inner monologue. So, and I know that firsthand because the negative voice that's always dinging in the back of my head is it's my parents' voice, it's my mother and my father's voice, telling me that I would never be shit, all of those things. And it was such a source of contention when I grew up, because when my mother progressively got very sick when I was a teenager, and my grandmother kind of stepped in and raised me, my mom never really understood, because when you have a female, you have a daughter, the mother expects to hear her voice come from her daughter. The mother expects to hear her imprint come from her daughter. And my mother heard her mother coming out of my mouth.
Your grandmother.
Yes.
Who was encouraging you.
Yes.
But
she was my imprint, because she was my only source of unconditional love.
So she didn't give that unconditional love to your mother?
I don't know because it was a different time. It was a different country. You know, they grew up very differently. And I think about that too when I think of my students because their parents grew up in a time where like you could beat the shit out your children, you know, and nobody was calling ACS. Now, parents are afraid to be parents. Parents are afraid to discipline their children. I mean, it's hard, and the crazy ones need more love. You know, the ones that are always turning up and discouraging the other kids. I don't say good kids, but, you know, the learned kids. They need more love because there's always a reason why a 12-year-old is turned the fuck up. 12-year-olds don't birth turned the fuck up. There's always a reason why they in class with no uniform, why they dirty, why every third word out their mouth is an expletive. Flows depending on the political climate of New York City. So when I started teaching in 99, 2000, it was like, yeah, you had 17-year-old 7th graders and it was the norm. You had 8th graders with house arrest bracelets. It was the norm. Like when I started teaching, I was your size and my students like towered above me and I'd just be in a class like, Jesus. Now they're more age appropriate for a myriad of reasons. One, we pass them on now. We just, oh, you can't read, fuck it. Just go ahead. Before we were holding them, we were trying to hold them accountable, and it kind of backfired on us.
So that's weird.
It backfired on us because they called our bluff.
My son went into high school the second year Bloomberg was in office when we did the No Child Left Behind.
Bloomberg.
And my son, when he saw that he could graduate, to get to the next level, go to 10th grade and not pass one class, I went up to school and said, why are
what
you
the
passing
fuck?
him?
Because you thought it was us, right? That's
And
what I mean.
When he
It wasn't
got-
us.
fucked me up as a parent.
Because it fucked us up as teachers.
Okay.
So
how did
and it fucked up the student. It
Yes.
fucked everybody up except for the bureaucrats who paid for the test that was rigged. That's right. Because in 2004, if you look it up, when Bloomberg took, quote unquote, office, everybody passed. You had record test scores. Everybody got 3s and 4s. That's because he bought an easy ass fucking test that a raccoon could have passed. And nobody said anything because since everybody's test scores hit the roof, everybody got quote unquote bonuses. I got a $1,400 bonus check. That shit was hush money. Because we all knew what the fuck was going on, but nobody wanted to ring the nigga button because we got our checks.
Wow. How is teaching at the college level, the collegiate level? Let me use the correct words.
You know, there are small nuances that are different, but a lot of times it's the same because I teach at a school that serves the same demographic that I teach for junior high school. I mean, I'm the child of immigrant parents, so it fills me with pride, but it frightens me. Because politically, I know the climate on immigration right now, and I understand that, like, we are all fighting for scraps right now. Like, poor people, like, we are all fighting for scraps.
They say that you have to change the mindset. So the fact that we're saying we're fighting for scraps means that we're fighting for scraps. If we don't say we're fighting for scraps, then that's not our reality.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Dr. Anthony Muhammad, who is this amazing educator, is black PhD, just a super intelligent brother. He wrote a book about the growth mindset. He wrote a book about changing the educational mindset will change the paradigm of urban education if you change the mindset of these children. And
But is that really...
it's so helpful.
sounds
It
good.
goes back to what I was talking about. It goes back to exactly what I was talking about in the original conversation that we had about our children seeing themselves in the narrative of education. Because why am I changing this mindset? You know, Frantz Fanon said it brilliantly. Like, if my laws don't apply to you, why the fuck do you think I'm going to abide by them?
Right.
Why am I changing my mindset if I don't see the end game, myself in the end game? And it's so true. Like, Dr. Muhammad said, and I love this quote, he said, look, if you ain't at the table, you on the menu.
Ooh,
Right?
say it again.
If you are not at the table, you are on the menu.
Wow.
Truer words, I haven't heard no truer shit than that. Like, that's real talk. Like, that's 1,000% real talk. And it's the same with our children. If they don't see themselves with a place setting at that table, they know they on the menu. So why the fuck am I gonna be at the table? Because I know you're farming me. You want to put me as a number so that my tax dollars that I generate can pay CEOs and real estate execs that just want to open up a fucking jail in this city anyway. They know that. So when we talk about changing and shifting the mindset, we have to talk about showing them that they are part of the mindset, showing them that they are part of this educational system and they are not just byproducts of the educational system. They are part and parcel of this educational system. And so it starts with little things. It starts with parents like you who come up to the school and ask questions. It starts with...
Do you have parents like that?
Of course I do, and I love parents like that. I love parents like that. The first thing I do the first week of school, after about 5-6 days, of course it does. Of course it does.
You know, once you get out of elementary school, especially when you got
because you feel like you don't have
kids.
to hold their hand as much. Right. Of course it does. But you do. You just have to hold their hand in a different way. Absolutely.
Because you get tired.
You damn right you get tired. No, of course you do. Of course you do.
Especially after like the third kid.
Of course you do. Because a lot of it is like the same shit repeated over and over again.
It's a different kid. So you don't want to get, because what that first kid needed, the third and the second may not. So how do you encourage the parents to stay active after the second and third and fourth kid?
What I do, celebrations. Like,
what's that?
Okay, so we're having a Halloween party, and I know because not a lot of my parents celebrate Halloween, especially like my Muslim kids and stuff. So we're having a celebration. We're having a Oktoberfest.
Okay.
You want to cook, Ma? Come on in and cook and come feed the kids. We do it at noon because I know a lot of my parents don't work.
Okay. A lot of your parents don't work.
A lot of them don't work.
Boys.
A lot of them don't work. You know, a lot of them are on public assistance. A lot of them don't work. Or a lot of them, I don't know. Or a lot of them, they have time to come in. If they don't have time to come in, we have a dance. Look, the dance starts at 6. Come bring the kid. Come chaperone. Okay. Oh, Ma, you want to make punch? Word, Ma, come make the punch. Let's dance.
You find that works?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, let's celebrate. Because when we come to celebrate, we come to fellowship. And if we're going to fellowship, then we're going to talk about these children.
So have you learned that from your own childhood examples?
No, I've learned that from teaching. I've learned that from urban education. I've learned that from outreach. Like, how do I outreach in terms of urban education? No, my parents were very hands off. My parents didn't talk to me about my job, my education. My parents.
And you're one of how many children?
2. Well, I'm with my parents had 2 children together.
Okay. So you and one other.
Yes.
Okay.
But my parents, they weren't involved. My parents were like, if the teacher calls, then you're getting your ass whooped. That's how they were involved. So they weren't involved. Now that I'm an educator, I realize my parents weren't involved. But they really didn't have to be because I liked school.
Brother or sister?
I had a little brother. Okay. But they didn't have to be,
okay.
I liked school.
Okay.
Because, school wasn't home. So,
Why was home bad?
Yeah.
What was bad about home?
I mean, I grew up in a really toxic, dysfunctional, abusive household.
What was toxic or dysfunction?
Just the way.
Is it dysfunctional? Was that your opinion?
No, it was dysfunction. Perfect example. Like, my parents didn't speak to each other.
What do you mean?
They didn't speak to each other. Like, they didn't speak to each other. Like, they didn't speak to each other. They didn't speak to each other.
How did that? Did you always think that was something weird or wrong?
I did. When I was little, I knew something was wrong with our household, but it really didn't affect me until I would go to my friends' households and I'd be like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. Oh. I knew something was wrong from jump.
You talked about having abusive relationships, and did that stem from a dysfunctional family?
Yeah. I didn't know what love was because my parents taught me at a very young age that love was conditional. And, that's a horrible lesson to teach your children. If anyone should teach children about unconditional love, it should be their parents. And, mine taught me the exact opposite. That I wasn't lovable or I wasn't worthy of unconditional love.
Do you have a relationship now with your mom and dad?
No, they're both deceased.
How old were you when they passed? Your mom, let's say.
My mother died when I was 19. My father died soon after that.
Oh damn. Well, that's my question. That seemed relevant because I was gonna say, did you ever get a chance then to make amends? And
no, there were no amends. No, they just died. There were no amends.
Then what happened to you at 20 with no parents? Not that you even had them before that.
I mean, I really didn't. But
now they're physically gone.
Now they're physically gone. So I was in college and I literally just, had to fend for myself. And it was funny that you say that about making amends because it took me a while to kind of make amends with myself and, kind of get closure on my childhood, without them, you know, being there, which is why I think I did so many drugs. And, you know, why I think I kept fucking shitty dudes. Because, you know,
How long did you do drugs?
Oh, well, I mean, for a while. When I was younger, drugs were just there. Because, you know, I grew up in the suburbs, and I mean, white kids do drugs. Not to say that, like, black kids don't do drugs, but, like,
do more drugs.
white kids do drugs. Like, white kids do fucking drugs. Like, their parents do drugs.
My son,
white kids do drugs.
This year, when they were seniors, was it this year or last year? One of their friends, white boy, died over heroin overdose. And my son came to me and he was like, "You guys are worried about weed." He was like, "Marijuana is the last thing."
White kids do drugs. A lot.
So, but you didn't grow up in a white neighborhood.
I did.
Okay.
In parts. I grew up in the suburbs, and you know, I went to like white schools
you
and
did
stuff.
say that. Okay.
So yeah, I was exposed to drugs real early, and you know, we got white friends. Drugs are nothing. Like, you want some cocaine? Okay, should we read this social studies book? No. Oh, sure. Like, you know, white kids do drugs. I did drugs. So there was a gap before it became recreational, and I didn't really think about it until it became a problem that like consumed me.
Okay.
So when I was younger, when I was a teenager, yeah, like there was acid, there was weed, there was coke, there was heroin, there was all that stuff, and it was cool. You know, in college, there was all that stuff, and it was cool. When I got a little older, like 24, 25, 26, 27, like I became severely addicted to cocaine, like, because it was the only thing that kept me from like feeling. Because having to feel, like having to deal with the shit that was happening in my mind that was like still unresolved, you know, was too much for me. So it kept me from, and I had a boyfriend at the time who, you know, he did it, and, you know, it was kind of like I wanted to keep him. So the only way that I could keep him was, you know, to do it with him. But, you know, it really, it spiraled for me.
So when did the light bulb come?
2004.
Wow.
And I literally, like, I had a vision almost, and God like told me, like, the next time you do this, you're gonna die. And that was enough. And it was so funny because, and that kind of goes back to our first point about understanding God and his presence in your life. I remember I was deep in my addiction, and I've told this story, you know, in like rehab meetings. And I remember,
Do you
like,
still go to rehab?
sometimes I go, like, just because it's the same reason why sometimes we go to church. Like, you're not too big for yourself that you don't remember you're a sinner. Like, you, come on now. Like, you weren't just a couple months just removed from, you know, searching plastic bags and stuff. Like, yes, now I might have been delivered, and now you know, I'm good, but I still remember.
Okay.
And I know it can be a bad day.
Shit, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
But I was in my boyfriend's car, and he went to go, you know, pay the gas dude. And I was in the car, and I had the plastic with the knife, and I was about to scoop up the drugs and, you know, just straight up do it. It's broad daylight. It's broad daylight. Anyone can see, because, like, it's cars. Like, it's at a gas. It's broad daylight. Cars are going by. All that shit. Like, I'm sitting in the car, and I can't pick up the coke with the knife. And I'm pissed off. And it's almost like someone is holding my hand. Like some power is just holding my hand. And I'm like, fuck. Goddamn fuck. And I just stop because I'm frustrated now. So I stop. I give up. And I look up and I look to the left. There's a fucking cop car sitting next to the car. And the cop is staring at me. And I look at him, and he just, you know, and he wasn't staring at me on no nefarious shit. He's staring at me, and he looks at me and says, you know, how you doing? You know, just to acknowledge. And I was like, so there are little things like that, like along the journey of fucked upness, you know, that, and I know people sometimes, you know, people think it's cliche. People think that I'm crazy when I say it, but that was nothing but God. Because I'm telling you, something was holding my hand. Like, I couldn't get it up. Something was, no. And I look up and I saw why. And I think back many times in my life, that has been the case a couple times. Like, that has been the case a couple times. There was one time I was driving my brother back from college, because, you know, at this point, you know, I'm a little bit older, and Jamie had just graduated from college, and, you know, nobody else was gonna get him. And I was like, all right, boom, I could do this. Drove down to Atlanta, didn't sleep, because, you know, you're young, you're invincible, you don't need sleep. Drove down from New York to Atlanta, made it in about 16 and a half hours. Going to the Mrs. Winter kitchen, wash my body like a hoe, put on the put on the graduation dress. Sunday morning, yay, graduation. Pack up his dorm room, take him out to dinner, turn around, get right back on the road. I'm not sleeping. Now I haven't slept for about 40 hours. I'm behind the wheel in the hills of West Virginia, doing 80, trying to get back to New York. Because I have it in my mind, I can make it to work in the morning, Monday morning. And I wake up, like I woke up behind the wheel. I had to be asleep for about at least 10, 15 seconds. I had to be. Because, when I remember dozing off.
Let's count 15 seconds.
At least, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
That's a long time.
Yep.
You was asleep.
I was asleep. Because the last thing I remember was a song playing. When I woke up, there was a commercial on the fucking radio. I was asleep. And I woke up and I said to myself, Jesus Christ. It's almost like the hand of God woke me up. And I looked over, and my brother, he was passed out. He would have woke up in heaven. He wouldn't have known. He would have woke up on the other side, where are we? We're dead, Jamie. Even now I think about it and my insides quiver. Because I almost killed him. I almost killed the both of us. And it was nothing but God that kept me from swerving off that. Because the hills of West Virginia, it's not no straight Brooklyn-looking street. Something kept us on that road because they knew that his life had a purpose. His life had an anointing. Something kept us alive. Because it wasn't me. He's a doctor now. He has 2 beautiful little daughters. And, yeah, he's an anesthesiologist.
Wow. And you're a professor.
Yeah.
And how long have you been clean?
Since August 14th, 2004.
Wow.
That
How
night.
does that feel?
It feels good.
That night?
That night. That night, when I had the vision, God said, you do this shit again, watch what happens. And the Bible says you don't test God. I ain't testing. I'm good. But all right. I get it. I rocked a long time. You let me fuck up a minute. I'm good now. I still smoke weed. But I stay away from the hard stuff because I know me. I know my mind. I have an addictive nature because I've learned self-destructive behaviors because that's how I survived as a child. I grew up in a war zone. You grew up. It was just easier sometimes for my parents to think that I was in pain so that they wouldn't inflict more pain on me. So I grew up believing that self-destruction or self-deprecation would keep me protected. I grew up always having to do this because that's bombs went off in my house. That was the childhood I had.
Because I think, again, when we talk about problems inside the house, they also become so generic. And it don't have to be the big, generic, things that people talk about that doesn't still affect the little things that actually probably screams more.
So, perfect example. My mom had just gotten finished screaming at me about something.
How old are you?
I don't know, I was in 6th or 7th grade.
Okay.
It was right before she got really sick. And I went back into the kitchen and I opened the fridge and a plate fell out and hit the floor. So immediately I guess she thought that I threw the plate on the floor. So she came in and she punched me in the back of the head. She didn't ask any questions, she just, and that's what would happen. So if something fell or if something was broken, it was my fault. So it just got easier just not to touch anything. Or if something fell, it got easier to be oh, it hit me. And then good, it hit you, good.
That's uncomfortable.
That's, and that's what I mean. Children imprint certain mentalities and certain ideologies as a defense mechanism. So if a 12-year-old's coming to your class cursing and fucked up, that's how they learn to navigate their childhood. They weren't born broken. That's how they learned to survive. That's how they got to 12. Because any other way, in whatever environment they grew up in, would have killed them, would have destroyed them. So that's how I navigated. So keeping clean is hard for me because I know, that's why sometimes I still go to meetings, because I know I'm still, in a lot of ways, that self-destructive child. And I'm still fighting to take that inner monologue out that's just my parents' voice. Like, it's not really my inner monologue. It's the things that they told me.
So who were the adults in your life that were encouraging or that led you to believe? Or were there adults in your life that gave you the feeling of, I can do anything?
Just my grandma. Yeah, it was just her. She was my everything for a long time. And yeah, she saved my life. I believe that. And I had a praying grandmother. Like, I had one of them grandmothers, like, when she prayed, like, the room shook. Like, I had a praying grandmother, and she saved my life. Wow. I don't know what bargain she made with God, but January 2014.
Wow, so you pretty much had a
long time.
Long time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was grateful.
How was 30 to 40? Because you're clean, you're teaching, you're in your career. You don't have the baggage of your parents if they're gone. It's just you and your grandmother. You're full-fledged in your profession.
Yeah, that's true. 30 is great. 30 is, I always tell women, like, that's the best birthday. Like, it is. Like, 30, there's just this explosion that happens in us as women. And I think it's just our giftings kind of manifest. Because at 30, you realize, like, you're a woman, and this womanhood that you have is this gift. It's wonderful.
What do you like about being a woman? Or do you like being a woman?
I love being a woman. I love being a woman. The fact that we can give life, or life comes through us. The fact that we're beautiful. The fact that we could probably do this by ourselves. And I mean, like, Earth, like, we could do this by ourselves. Y'all couldn't. Like, you couldn't do this without us. If the world were populated with more men than women, we'd been dead 4 or 5 times over from nuclear war. I believe that. Y'all would have blown us up.
I have a video online now. There's this white reporter, or white journalist, and he's interviewing white folks in regards to the political arena that we're in. Trump, Hillary. Why did I say Hillary? Trump, Clinton. It's so funny how.
Well, you have to discern because there's 2 Clintons. So there.
Well, we only have 1 Clinton
right now.
But right now, which is really the both of them still.
Exactly.
But anyway. So he's asking questions, and he asked, so do you think that the world would be better if ran by women? So the woman, straight up and down, like, no hesitation. Oh my God, this world can't be run by women. We would be at war all the time. Women are too emotional. You get on a woman's nerve and, she'll push the button.
What a dumb bitch.
He says, I believe all wars have been started by
men.
And she was like,
oh, yeah.
But it was like, I reposted it, mad that it was out there. But I was like, this is so sad, because there was one woman who would say, like, homosexuals, they want too much. They want to be able to raise kids and they just want too much. So he goes, they want too much from the straight people who want to raise kids. She was like, yes, raising kids. Why would they want? It was just so sad to watch, because it was blatant.
That she was a dumb bitch. Yeah. So they found what they wanted. Like, they found a dumb bitch. Just like when the newscasters go out and try and find the most ignorant Negro they see on the street. You come, tell us everything that happened. They do this. I mean,
how do you feel as a conscious or someone who's not ignorant? So you see the program.
It's hilarious to me because I know why it's being done. So it's hilarious to me. Like, I'm like, oh, look, you found Raekwon. That's nice. He's got his hat to the back and his blunt in his mouth. Oh, and you asking him. Oh, okay. All right, that's nice. Oh, here comes the new meme on YouTube. Ain't nobody got time for that. Oh, that's hilarious. I think it's really funny because I'm watching slowly but surely as their kind of creations are backfiring in their face, because now all that ignorance is just imprinting on young white society. And now, like, the power structure is up in arms because they're like, the white kids are starting to pull their pants down. Oh, what the fuck do we do?
This is the movement.